RotoGrinders. That's my homage to Blender. If you guys watched Blender's show earlier in the day, it is actually 5:30 on the East Coast. It's not 5 o'clock. Why are we jumping on so late? Well, because the slate starts 7:30 tonight. We're taking you all the way up the lock. Crunch time's coming in around 6:45 or so. You got Kevin Roth. Kevin Roth coming back. I guess he had a little bit of a vacation. Not sure where he was, but hope everything is well with Roth. SquirrelPatrol coming in, and I believe Kyle Murray. Myself, I'm not by myself. I'm with TJ. TJ's Warrich, one of the greatest DFS players in all of Saskatchewan, Canada. TJ, what's going on, dude? Are we excited about tonight's basketball slate? I asked that question. I'm not going to lie, TJ. I love playing NBA DFS. I hate this slate. I want you to talk me through it, and I want you to get me excited about it because I hate the Jazz, and this slate is all about the stupid Jazz and all their stupid players. And all our stupid minutes that we can't predict. Because, it's not like, I don't know if it's a tank thing, it's kind of early for a tankathon game with Portland, but, this is a game that game 81 of the season where nobody will be playing. That's kind of sort of where we're at. We'll see, at least in the Utah side, essentially their entire starting lineup is out. But yeah, are you with me, TJ, as far as this slate being miserable, or is that just, we're all dealing with the same pieces. But I really don't want to mess with the Jazz, but we kind of have to.
Yeah, it's pretty ugly. I don't know. I can't really get you excited for it because I'm having a tough time getting excited for it too. I honestly just in general, I'm with you. I love playing MLB DFS or NBA DFS, but I'm having a lot more fun with football and hockey lately. And so I actually am, I'm ready for it, but I'm honestly not as excited for it either. And what I think I'm going to start doing for NBA is bringing myself down to one lineup, because my single entry stuff, not only is my single entry stuff doing better than my multi lineup stuff. Now that's just how it goes, right? It's going to depend on the day. The more lineups you're playing, the more money you're probably going to lose until the day that you hit. But
not according to Twitter, TJ. My understanding is if you max enter, you can't lose. You get every possible combination. Is that not? Are you saying that's wrong? That's incorrect?
Yeah, never anything Twitter says. Just believe the opposite. And so I'm only playing one lineup today. There's some decent stuff to get excited about on this slate, but I'm feeling like I'm going to enjoy the puzzle piecing my way through it a little bit more with only one instead of a bunch.
I'm running some optimals now. Our projections just updated 10-15 minutes ago. So it's going to be, the best updates possible and probably some guesswork as far as Utah minutes. I'm glad I'm not on the projection team to mess with that. Certainly there's plenty of body parts still up in the air. Jaylen Brown's got an ankle, so he's questionable. Anthony Edwards has that hip. We're not sure about him. He's questionable. Paul George plays late and he's questionable. Boston is also on the front end of a back-to-back. That's kind of worth noting because we mentioned Jaylen Brown. Porzingis has a probable tag. Maybe they're going to do some stuff as far as, rest today, play tomorrow, or vice versa. Portland might be getting back two of their better players in Brogdon and Ayton. Like we said, Utah's ruled everybody out. It's a tough one. It's a tricky slate, and let's see if I can run these optimals. So when I was looking at it before is 3 or 4 Jazz players hitting in optimals, which again, they're cheap for the most part. It is the weirdest thing that Utah is called the Jazz, but they didn't change the name when they got him from New Orleans, right? Many years ago. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 Jasmine in the very first optimal I just ran.
Sounds like 5. A Disney princess.
Yes. 5 in the I don't know which one that is. I'm aware of Jasmine, but this is not my wheelhouse. It's definitely your wheelhouse. Which movie was she from, Jasmine?
Aladdin.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, well.
Beauty and the Beast is Belle.
There you go. And Fiona is somebody. I know Fiona's Frozen?
Shrek.
Ah, Shrek. That's right. Okay.
Frozen's Elsa and Anna.
There you go. I'm way off. This is not on Jeopardy. If I hit the daily double, I will be wagering $0 in this category and just winging it and say hi, mom, or something like that. But yeah, that's the story of the slate as of right now is the Jazz nonsense because we're getting 4 or 5 of them and their rotations are just wild and just sort of hard to predict. But they are down to 10. I think 10 people will be dressing. and I'm not sure if we're going to give any minutes to like Micah Potter. I know Taylor Hendricks, somebody we're expecting to get some run, who's cheap. But we'll get there when we get there. It's a 10 o'clock game. Slate obviously starts at 7:30. Cleveland and Boston running it back. Well, before we take the game by game, what do you have to say as far as a slate on an overall besides, Utah is sort of dictating it because, again, that's the nature of the slate. And I don't think you can ignore them. I think you have to have – if you were playing 150, would you have a rule like at least – well, I guess it would just happen organically, right? I guess the other question is, where would you cut it off? No more than 3, no more than 4, right? Yeah. Your thoughts on the slate overall?
Puppet Master in chat saying, can tell who's got kids. I don't. I have no kids yet. I got my first one on the way, but I don't have any yet. I still am one. But also I own a company that talks about TV and movies for my other job. So that's kind of where that comes in as well. But yeah, this slate is interesting because we've had so many, like, without Atlanta, Charlotte, Washington, Indiana, the Spurs.
You all played yesterday.
None of these teams are on the slate, and they're all the combination of fastest and worst defensive teams in the league. And so it's been pretty easy this year to just go, all right, I want to play the games with these teams. It's a massive pace-up spot for the other teams, so I want to play their opponents against them. And we don't have that on this slate at all. The only one with like a really big total on the whole slate is OKC and Sacramento, and their players are all priced appropriately. So it's a very, very interesting one. Feels like a old school DFS slate.
The worst defensive team in this slate is Utah, but they're facing Portland, and Portland is the second worst offensive team, right? I guess they'll be a little better today if they get some of their pieces back. And who knows, whatever, they're the defensive numbers that we have right now is based on players that aren't playing tonight anyway. Not that I'm thinking that like Fontecchio is a good defensive player or whoever else is going to get some additional run, like THT is not a defensive savant. But yeah, Chris Dunn, I guess, is historically a pretty good defensive player. He might get a few more minutes. Walker Kessler's missed a chunk of the season. He was a good rim protector last season at least. But yeah, man, that is the slate. It's kind of a rough one, and we're not sure about Paul George either. If he doesn't go, somebody like Kawhi would look better. You could play Kawhi as is. Obviously, Harden would look better incrementally, and I don't know if they would clear an obvious like wing like
it didn't. It didn't work for the squad ride the other day with Damian Lillard getting enough points because he's a liar. He just promised the kids something and said no. He said, screw you to the kids. But I do think it's interesting that with Paul George questionable, James Harden is 20 points away from, I believe, 25,000 career points.
Okay, and this isn't kids. A kid's there.
No, it's not kids.
It's
25,000 career points. He's at home. Paul George is questionable, and the last I checked, I believe his points prop was 17.5. So I hit the over hard on that one.
On Harden? Yeah, it's fun. I saw somebody on Twitter, speaking of Twitter, was like they were talking about the over prop, and sure, it might be a good prop. I don't know. Like you say it is, and I don't disagree. But like they were saying the reason why is because he's gone over against Golden State like his last so many times dating back to 2017. And it's like, oh yeah, because James Harden's situation in 2023 is exactly the same as it was in 2017 and 2018. Same exact player, same exact role. I just thought it was a weird stat to cite because, it was nonsense because he was basically running the show in 2017.
It's 17.5 for some places, 18.5 others. Right now it's 17.5 on DraftKings. I got that on my site as well. Check what it is on yours. If it's only in the 17s, you should hit that one with us. Have our own little mini Grinders Live squad ride.
Okay. Let's see. I will check on the fly. And we should mention, we'll tell the people what the squad ride is because it's new and the people are having some fun here in the Discord.
Yeah, it's I only the first one I partook in was the Damian Lillard one, and so that one didn't go super well. But fun little chat to get involved with the RotoGrinders community. Like that's the most fun part about it for me is it's not really about what the play is individually. It's just getting together with a group and all betting on the same thing, and it makes it a lot more fun. So definitely check out the Squad Rides chats in the RotoGrinders Discord.
So I got 17.5 at -145. Like, get out of here, Hard Rock. Come on. I'm not paying -145. I'm not doing
Is there an alt line of 20? That's a little better.
Yeah, that's what I might do. I might do that. So that means like in before he scores 18 or 19 points exactly. But just I should be clear, the Squad Ride pick officially was not that was Kirkwood going he went a little AWOL there yesterday because he went off the board.
He went rogue.
Yeah, he went rogue. That's the better word. That's what I was looking for. It's one person nominates somebody else, and they have to pick something from the scores and odds team. And that was not an official scores and odds pick, the lower thing. But Chop and Kirkwood found a fun narrative, and they just introduced it. And the actual real pick was, it was a player for Detroit to score less than 10.5 points. Maybe Jaden Ivey. I can't remember. It might have been Ivey. It actually hit. He only scored 6 points. So the squad won yesterday.
The squad won yesterday. I tried to follow the cool kids, and I should have just been a part of the squad.
RotoGrinders.com/Discord squad rides. I'll go ahead and drop this link in chat for people as well if you're not aware. Most of the Discord channels are free. I'll tell you this: the squad pick tonight is in. Now you're not obligated to watch it, but it's in the Chargers-Raiders game. If you're looking for a squad ride pick in there right now, and I have not officially bet it just yet because I didn't get a great number. I'm a little hesitant on the player, but I'm out here besmirching, but I might get it. We'll see. Stay tuned. I did bet Stick to get a rushing touchdown, and I believe it was like 7-1. That was my bet for the game. 7-1 seemed too good for somebody that can move. So I know they're not supposed to score many touchdowns or points in general, but got on board with that.
I did, yeah. Okay. I did a few for this one too. I layered Stick from 15 to through 35 passing yards, like every combination of 5. I got him for a rushing touchdown. I got him for a first touchdown, and then I got him for 2 touchdowns at 32-1.
Woo! Look at what do you put, like $10 on that, $15 on that? Because I know yesterday Kirkwood was he was unit shaming me because I have $19 on Dak Prescott doing MVP. I was just trying to donkey off, like when I just opened up the book and I wanted to say, here, I'm going to make some dumb bets because I want them to think I'm like some, I don't want to get limited at any point, essentially. And it turns out it might be a good bet. We'll see. All got it like 30-1.
Yeah, all the touchdowns and first touchdown ones, I did $5. And then the Stick 15 through like 15, 20, 25, 30, 35 yards rushing, I did 40 on each of them.
You don't tell Kirkwood. He's going to unit shame you. He's going to if you're not betting at least 500, he doesn't want to hear about it. He's not impressed. All right. Cleveland's taking on Boston tonight. 225 is the total. They're running this one back. Boston on the front half of a back-to-back. They're 9-point favorites here. As far as who's in and who's out, we still have Evan Mobley out. Jaylen Brown is questionable. Porzingis, the zinger, he's got a calf. He is probable. But again, remember, they're on the front half of a back-to-back. I think tomorrow they play Orlando, if I'm not mistaken. Like you said, kind of the nature of the slate. This is one of those games that's just not terribly eventful. Certainly, you can play pieces here. If you have one big spend and you think Mitchell's going to be the guy that breaks the slate, sure, play him. Is there anything that like says that it's going to happen or it's likely to happen? No. But yeah, can you get me excited about Cleveland, Boston? Jared Allen, his price has kind of adjusted to the new role the last couple games without Mobley, a little bit more solidified role, 33 minutes, but Boston's a tough matchup inside. You got to get the Boston on the outside. Jared Allen's not a guy that's going to be hitting 3-pointers. So I don't really like him. He's the one getting the most ownership currently, 17%. Everybody else is in single digits. I don't like this game. Now, if we get Brown rolled out, Porzingis rolled out, okay, sure, let's have a conversation then. But as things stands currently, and you're making one lineup, I'm going to guess that nobody in your one lineup is in this game. You tell me otherwise.
No, unless Jaylen Brown gets ruled out, then I'll be considering some Boston players, but definitely nobody from this game's making my one lineup. If I was running 150, I think on the Cavs, I would still probably consider. I would keep Donovan Mitchell, Jarrett Allen, and maybe even Max Strus in the pool, but probably not. I don't think I need him. I don't think he has a big enough ceiling. Like, he's probably going to get me 5x, but I just don't know if I really need it. And I think one of the other reasons why I want to. No, a lot of it is variance, a lot of it is luck. But one of the other reasons I want to kind of scale back my NBA volume and keep going up with NFL and NHL is because those two sports have been going super well for me. And NBA, it's been going fine when I do single entry stuff, but when I'm building lots of lineups, it hasn't been going that well for me. And so I kind of want to reevaluate my process. And one of the things I've realized is I just have too many players in there that like just too big of a pool. And I just take shots on too many guys. Like I had a just phenomenal lineup the other day that when the Bulls were out some guys and they had a pretty good matchup, that like I had a really great lineup that finished with Torrey Craig at like 9 points in it. And I was just looking back at it like, why was Torrey Craig even in my pool? Like he had a decent point per dollar projection, but where's the ceiling on Torrey Craig? Why was he in there?
25, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And so, that's something I kind of want to reevaluate and still look at it of if I were multi-entering, how would I go about it? And so I think the only player on the Cavs I would take shots on would be Jarrett Allen, Donovan Mitchell. On Boston, it would just be Tatum, maybe but no, that's it. Probably just Tatum, like Holiday, White, Porzingis. I don't think I would probably get there unless Jaylen Brown is out. If he is out, my favorite of the group is probably Hauser. Hauser and Pritchard both, I think, become really solid values in that situation. But for the most part, small amount of lineups, no interest in this game. The only place I would have interest, and I did write it up, and I dropped the link in chat. I wrote up NBA and NFL Prize Picks articles today, and one of the first ones I dropped for NBA is over 30.5 fantasy points for Jarrett Allen. I like that one a lot.
We do have an if-then. If Brown happens to sit, it is already set up if you have RG Premium. There will be one DK value if Brown's out. It will be Tatum. Tatum would have a 50-point projection, a 48-point projection on FanDuel. Very, very close to like a break-even value will be Derek White, Sam Hauser, Holiday a little bit. Holiday and Porzingis, that's just kind of the order. But we would have Hauser getting 31 minutes and 24 DK points, 22 FanDuel. I cut out the decimals. But yeah, so... And the other thing is like Tatum is expensive and 50 points is good, but if he gets exactly 50 points, no more, no less, do I need that? No, right? I certainly can get more, but it's even if that domino falls, I don't really love what we see. We shall move on. But certainly, yeah. And the other to your point, by the way, it's like if you make 150, if you're making 100 lineups, your 90th lineup is not going to be as good as your 20th lineup, like almost just the way you're building them. Now, is it possible your 90th lineup can win if something goofy happens? Sure. But like the more lineups you're making, the less good they are. There's probably a better way of phrasing that, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
All right. Chicago. Speaking of Torrey Craig, Chicago, the Bulls are in Miami. 216.5 is the total. Not a very appealing number. Then this is the other 7:30 game. There are two games at 7:30 that we take an hour pause. Heat are basically, same deal what we had before. No Josh Richardson, no Haywood Highsmith, no Bam Adebayo, no Tyler Hero. As is always the case, Alex Caruso is questionable. Zach LaVine has a foot, so he's not playing. This is not a great game environment. Again, I ask you, TJ, the challenge accepted or not, get me excited about something in this game. I will say in FanDuel, I do like Jaime Jaquez a good bit. I think he's a really, really good play over there. Probably not going to start, but 5.5 seems like a really, really good price for him. We're projecting 33 minutes on him. Fits right in with the old Heat culture, does a little bit of everything. And more than anything, it's just the price. I like Caleb Martin too, although he stunk yesterday, but he should play 33, 34, 35, 36 minutes again. But just the price is a little bit too baked up for me. If you want him in your pool, sure, by all means. In my main lineup, almost definitely not. And we keep talking about Jimmy Butler, whatever, revenge, I guess. What does that mean? Like he's just not it this year. Older, I don't know, taking it easy, waiting for the playoffs, but he's just not being the alpha Butler where you need him to be. The salary's not adjusting. Like he's just too expensive. You tell me. Bulls, Heat, we excited?
I'd have a lot more interest in this game if it wasn't one of the first ones locking. Like if it wasn't right at 7:30, I think I'd be more interesting to slot guys in as last pieces. But because it does make me tempted just because it's such a low total, such a bad game environment. It has me tempted to just X out the first two games entirely. And even if I was playing more lineups, X out those two games entirely, wait a full another hour for the next one to start, see if I get any late news and build based on that. And even if no late news comes, it's still incredibly possible that no one in those first two games are optimal. So I don't hate taking that strategy today. For the Chicago side of things, if I do want to play somebody, DeRozan I think is fine. His price is still low enough that there's a ceiling there. Kobe White would probably be my favorite. It's a bad matchup, but he just keeps putting up points without Levine. He's shooting a ton, playing a ton of minutes. So I think Kobe White is totally viable in tournaments. Not going to be messing around with any of that cheap stuff. Again, you can always throw Andre Drummond in if you're playing 150 lineups, but at $4,700, I like doing that a lot better when he's like $3,800. $4,700, all of a sudden the upside in that limited minutes is not really as there, and the floor is a lot worse because if he plays 10 minutes, he can still get there if he's like 3,800. He's not doing it at 4,700 though. So on the Miami side of things, yeah, I don't mind Caleb Martin, but probably not going to get there a ton. Jaquez on Fanduel is fine. I think the only player here that's really viable because everyone has been priced up is, as Herbert Good is pumping him up in chat, it's Jamal Cain, because he came in and he just played Josh Richardson's minutes. They barely bumped up anybody else, and with Richardson gone, they just went in and played Jamal Cain in his place. So he's viable if he's going to be going. Like we project him for 24 minutes. He played 28 minutes last game. Put up some good ancillary points. You know, he had 2 blocks and a steal, or 2 steals and a block. I don't know if you can count on that again, but he's only $3,400. So really, what are you sacrificing by playing him? He's $3,400. If he gets 15 points, fine. You're probably still good, especially on a slate like this.
This is the thing, like, this doesn't make any sense, but it's the old nature of the slate, right? He's projected for 14 fantasy points and 17% ownership. That's like, to me, I run away from stuff like that almost always. Also, good point you mentioned, the 7:30 thing. That's probably where I'm going to go as well and just not play the first 2 games and hope some stuff comes to us. I was going to say hope we get a Utah starting lineup, but that's not going to happen, right? Not until after the 9 o'clock games lock.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, and what was weird,
but still, if you're not playing anybody in those first 2 games, even if you have a couple spots locked up by Dallas, Minnesota, and Brooklyn and Denver, you're still going to have the vast majority of your lineup to pivot around with. Yeah.
I mean, I think we'll talk about it, but I think you can just play like the 10 o'clock slate. You know what I mean? Like just like forget everything until 10 o'clock. I think that's like a fun little strategy.
It's a lot scarier to do with the 8 and 9 o'clock games than it is with the first 2, but I agree. I think you can.
What's weird, I'm looking at the court IQ stuff, and I don't know why this happened. Why did Butler not play the fourth quarter yesterday? So that I think what happened is that Miami was well ahead, and then Charlotte was catching up, and it's like it looks like it was closer than it actually was. It was an 11-point game. Is that what happened here? I know Lowry played no minutes in the fourth as well, but Caleb Martin played the entire fourth. Just trying to figure out. It's very strange. Like Kane played the entire fourth as well, but no Lowry minutes, no Butler minutes.
Orlando Robinson only played 12 minutes.
Yes. And I think we saw this was a rematch of a game where they played previously, and I think it was basically both bigs were off the court, right? Richards was off and Robinson was off, and the team just, I don't know who made the move first or why.
Well, like Thomas Bryant played minutes too.
Yes. Yeah. Just odd.
Again, maybe that was the blowout stuff you were talking about, though.
Let's see. Okay, so Miami was up 21 at the start of the fourth, and then they were up 16 with 8 minutes to go. But they never brought back Butler. They never brought back Lowry. I also was like the front end of a back-to-back. So maybe like they didn't want to bring back the vets unless they absolutely needed them. Maybe that's the thought process, right? Again, just sort of guessing why that's why they did it. Because they know they're going to need Butler tonight. They kept him at 29 minutes, Lowry at 24 minutes. The Kane thing, though, he's not a good fantasy point per minute player. 0.63 on the season. That's pretty bad. He's not a big usage guy, 14%. It's kind of thin. It's kind of thin, and it's right out the gate. And like you said, if he puts up 15 points, is that going to hurt you?
How much can you trust the 0.63 and the usage rate, though, when he's only played in like 6 games this year?
We can go back to last year. You want last year's stuff? I'll tell you last year.
I still, like, even if you include last year, is it like even above 200 total minutes?
So last year he played 217 minutes and he was at 0.87. So he was better last year. So maybe that's a reasonable point as well. Was
that's exciting. More? That's more exciting.
Not the same. And a lot of it matters like who he's playing alongside too. And that's Kane is going to typically not be with the starters, but sometimes there'll be some crossover stuff. Of course, Miami dealing with some injuries. So I think the best point though is at 7:30. Do I want to lock in 15 Jamal Kane minutes of points? No, I don't want to lock that in. But give me flexibility.
But 7:30, if you lock in 20 Jamal Kane points, you're probably going to be pretty happy.
A Buff in chat says, I guess it says hidden, but Kobe White sucks. He's been amazing of late. I don't know what you've been watching, but he's incredibly up and down, right? But and his role right now is spectacular too. So, he's got to kind of score 25, 30 points, but he can do that. We're projecting 38 minutes out of him. Now he's 7'5". He's no longer like 5'2" or 5'1" or whatever. No Levine. He's definitely stepped up in the absence of a Levine. We saw DeRozan have a big game the other night, and I'm kind of on the side of like, I never really like playing DeRozan. I don't like playing guys that are just, they want to take a 20-foot, mid-range jumper, basically. They're not going to get me threes. They're not going to get me rebounds.
He'll get you rebounds sometimes. He'll get you rebounds and assists sometimes. But my thing with DeRozan is I basically only play him when I'm loading up on the other team. Like, DeRozan is always a guy I feel good about as a run back because if it ends up being a close, high-scoring game, he's usually a very big part of it. And so DeRozan, he's based almost exclusively just like, I'm playing 3 guys on the other team tonight. Well, let's throw some DeRozan in there too.
Yeah, but
Alex Caruso will play.
Yeah, I mean, that's the plan as of now. We'll see when he warms up. Tough dude. He's trying his best. He's gutting through it, but he's very clearly not 100%. And to me, it's basically unplayable. Like there's speaking of no ceiling, there's no ceiling on Caruso. You're just hoping he gets through the game and gives you 20 fantasy points. And like, what's the point of that? We're giving him 23 minutes, about 21 fantasy points. And again, no ceiling for Caruso unless he gets 9 steals, which is probably not going to happen. Anything else you want to say as far as the Bulls and the Heat?
Nothing else. No, let's move on because these early games suck.
All right. Yeah. Well, one of the points that Herbert in chat is making, we'll talk about it now, is that somebody like Kane will get you Luka Doncic. Luka and the Mavs, 230 total. They're home versus Minnesota. They're 1-point favorites. We know Dallas is pretty beat up right now. Seth Curry is out. Kyrie is out for a while. No Kleber, no Josh Green. DJJ is questionable. Is that correct? We don't officially know on Derek Jones. He had that. And Hardaway expected to play with his back. Minnesota, Edwards questionable. McDaniels questionable. McLaughlin questionable. If McDaniels plays, he's one of the better defenders in the league, so he would jump right in that starting lineup and play Luka. I'm not somebody that freaks out over matchups, but to me, it's in Minnesota on the whole is a good defensive team. I know we love Luka when there's no Kyrie, but I feel like it's like, a little bit tougher for him to put up like an 85 spot or an 80 spot, whatever it is.
Yes and
Yeah,
no. The thing with a good defensive team is it almost makes it so that the good scorers just get more of the usage and more of the volume because the rotations are good and they're the only ones who can actually do anything because you're not getting the same wide open look corner shots. So just the catch and shoot guys, etc., aren't doing as much. And so I find like against a good defensive team, it's often the star player, the guys with a lot of usage that end up putting up a decent score because they actually have to do more. Plus, it's like, yeah, you don't want to go inside because Gobert and Towns are there. Well, Doncic will just shoot from wherever he wants.
Minnesota, the best defensive rated team on the season. They're 20th in pace as well, so they're slow and play really good defense. Again, all this stuff, I agree. It's not something that like Luka could not overcome. But if you're going to handpick your opponent, if you want to pay Luka 12K or whatever,
It's
Minnesota's not
exactly.
Yeah, it's not the team you're going to pick. With that said, yeah, thoughts as far as Luka and the Mavs?
I don't want to play too many of these guys because of the matchup. If Derek Jones Jr. is out, I will be more interested in the ancillary pieces like Tim Hardaway Jr., Grant Williams, Jaden Hardy. As it stands right now, if Derek Jones Jr. plays, these guys have all been priced up to a pretty good point that I don't know if I need to get there. I did write up a player in this game in my Prize Picks article, Derek Lively. There's a good line over for him on Prize Picks, so make sure you check that one out. Check it out in the article, which way I'm leaning. But it's mostly just Luka for me. If Derek Jones Jr. is out, I will definitely consider Jaden Hardy and Grant Williams. But right now, it's mostly just Luka if I can find the value. I'm not going to go out of my way to prioritize him, though. I'm probably just going to be leaving that one fly. Do we just get Jaylen Brown? Yeah, available to play. So that makes it easier to just scratch out those early games entirely. On the Minnesota side of things, they have the potential to be the most interesting team on the slate, I think, because if Anthony Edwards is out, I think that makes Karl Anthony Towns the best spend up on the slate because he's very affordable at $9K. So I think it makes, and I believe he's even cheaper on FanDuel if I'm not mistaken. Let me pull it up right now because I know, 8,500 on FanDuel. So I think Towns becomes probably like the best non-Jazz play on the slate and the best spend up on the slate. If we get Anthony Edwards out, I think Gobert is fine. Like at a certain point, you just have to, as much as none of us really like him, we have to realize that the ceiling is there and he's had a phenomenal season. He's in 3 of his last 4 games. He's been up over 48 fantasy points. So I think he's in the conversation. Conley's gotten too expensive. But if Edwards is out, I think Troy Brown Jr. is in the discussion. If Jaden McDaniels plays and starts with Edwards out, I'd have a lot of interest in him because he probably gets extended minutes because they'll probably just try and have him out there on Luka as much as possible. And then Kyle Anderson, I think, is in play too, especially if a couple of these guys are out. So if they all play, it's Luka, it's maybe Anthony Edwards, it's maybe a touch of Gobert, that's it. If all of a sudden some of these Minnesota players are out, Towns would be a smash play, and I would mix in some of these wings as well.
We do have an if-then, and I'm surprised that Cat is not like popping in an if-then. He's a slight positive value. If we lose Edwards in this game, Gobert will be a little bit better value as far as point per dollar, around 39 DK points, on 38 FanDuel points. Cat will be closing in on 44 on DK, 41 on FanDuel, which would be about a 5-point jump. So it's a meaningful jump, like you say, but it's like as far as like what a DK value is, how we determine that, it's not a massive DK value, but it's certainly a positive one. And Conley would be a positive FanDuel value, not a positive DK value. But some fringe uncomfortable stuff there. We're getting a little bit better. Anything else of note as far as Minnesota, Dallas, or shall we move on?
No, let's keep it rocking.
All right. I see our guy Butto Jenkins hanging out in chats, talking about the Jimmy Buckets revenge game. I don't know when the statute of limitations are up on revenge games, but I don't know, game 17, 19, 21. I'm not sure what
the only
right
Jimmy
now.
revenge game that was real was that one after the first time he left Minnesota, where he reportedly just like called them all a bunch of bums and beat them with beat the whole Wiggins and Towns with the B squad. And so that was the only real Jimmy Butler revenge game.
Does he have revenge versus Philadelphia? Like I even forget he was on Philadelphia. It's like, oh yeah, he was on the Sixers for.
I never remember that either. That one to me worked better than any of the other ones.
Yeah,
like,
it
the other
happened.
things they've tried with like Harden and all these other pieces, I feel like Butler was the best fit of them all. Just go Butler, Embiid, and a bunch of shooters, and you're good.
Embiid is like so much better this year than he was last year. Yeah, it's funny how it works. You know, he won the MVP. He won the MVP last year, right? I get my years confused, but I think it was last year where they gave him the MVP. But he's been distinctly better just across the board this season. Hopefully he stays healthy and he's got some juice for when the playoffs roll around. Do want to mention, if you guys are playing some NFL DFS, if you're making the life choice of playing and watching the Raiders and the Chargers tonight, use SimLabs to generate DFS lineups with the power of simulation. Combines data from every aspect of the slate to churn out lineups that match your preferences. Just a few clicks, you can have hundreds of well-built, correlated lineups ready to go for whatever contest type you're playing. Be sure to check out the link in the description for more information. Here's a note: if you happen to have, if you're a premium member currently right now, a combo member, an NFL premium member, you're a premium subscriber, you actually have access to the NFL SimLabs tool right now. So feel free to use that at your own leisure. And while we're here, I know you mentioned some props earlier, the props and pick'em package. Check out the brand new props and pick'em package. That is a lot of P's, and I don't really know how I get through it, but yeah, it's a lot of P's, right? Is that hard just for me, TJ? Maybe you're a better reader than I am, but too many P's for me.
Look, I'm used to having to do the crunch time reads where I have to name all the states where FanDuel Sportsbook is eligible.
Yeah.
So the 3 P's is nothing compared to that one.
I gotta say, and this is not a knock on you, but Roth is incredible at that. He's spectacular.
Everybody always compliments Roth. I think I'm faster.
Oh no! Oh well, we're gonna have a showdown later on. That's what's happening during crossover. The gauntlet has been dropped. I think Roth is minus 400.
Minus 400. Wow.
We need producer Steve to get like a clock on the screen. We gotta figure this out.
I would say Roth should be like a minus 180 favorite.
Okay, maybe I was a little too. But the other thing is,
maybe minus 150.
There will be accuracy penalties. You can't just like mumble your way through it.
Of course.
This is going to be. Maybe somebody should give Roth it. We can wake Roth up at like 4:00 in the morning and just like in the deep sleep and say, Roth, give me the FanDuel read. And boom, he'll knock it out in 3 seconds.
Roth has got 2 babies. You think he's fast asleep at 4:00 in the morning?
I don't know. I'm not. Probably not. Yeah, he's it feels like his kids don't get older. It feels like he's had kids for old, but I guess they're 3 and 4 at this point. I'm not sure. But you'll know soon enough, right, TJ? Do we have an official date on that? Is that public?
End of March, March 28th or 29th, something like that is the due date. Michael Townsend's making a great point in chat. He's disappointed in the likes, and he's disappointed in me, and it's deserved. It's 100% correct. I got to take accountability here. We got to bump these likes way up. Almost 300 of you watching, and we have like 28 likes right now. Smash the like button. It does absolute wonders for us. It makes us show up on the main page. It's important to battle the algorithm. Look, it doesn't matter how many of you watching or hanging out and benefiting from this content. It sucks for us unless people hit the like button. It doesn't it hurts us if people aren't hitting that like button. We don't show up on the main page. It impacts us personally, how many shows we get, things like that, how many shows you get. So smash that like button and let's keep it going.
All right. I didn't finish the read for what it's worth, but yeah, the props and pick'em package, the experts of the RG projections team, they take the premium stats, they comb through them, they check out the market. They're looking for inefficiencies. They use the model and easily see which lines are off, where to find them, and how likely the prop will hit based upon the tool. I'll give you an actual percentage number and say this is like 63% chance it's going to go over or under. And, if you're playing in the prize pick streets, you're playing in the underdog streets, you can use that to your advantage. Check out the link in the description for more information. Moving on. We got 3 down, 4 to go. SquirrelPatrol is coming on in about a half hour or so in crunch time, as well as Kyle Murray and Roth, and the gauntlet will be dropped. We're going to catch him off guard, but I'm sure he'll be on top of it as far as the read.
It's not like I'm exactly preparing. We're doing a show right now, so I think it'll be fine.
Well, you have a mental edge, though. Right? You know what's coming, right? We're going to catch him off guard. He doesn't know what I'm going to ask him when he jumps on, unless he's watching the show now. Probably not. I don't know what prep work he does for basketball. Baseball, he's digging in as far as, trying to figure out weather, precipitation, heat, and all that good stuff. Basketball, he's just sort of asking his questions, and he wants to make his lineups on the fly. Okay, Brooklyn, they are in Denver. Denver, tough place to play, obviously. It is not a back-to-back for Brooklyn. No, it is. They played last night, so historically, I knew I noted this earlier. Tough place to play on the back-to-back in Denver. 230 and a half is the total. Denver is a 10-point favorite here. DFS, Dorian Finney-Smith, he's questionable. He's got a knee. DSJ's got a back, so he can't play basketball. We know Walker and Simmons unavailable, as is the case for a while. KCP, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, not playing basketball tonight. He's currently in the concussion protocol. Murray and Gordon expected to go. Christian Brown is our projection as far as who's going to jump in that starting lineup. No guarantees, but that seems to make the most sense. We talked about Luka being spectacular. Well, Jokic, he's pretty good too. Assuming he does not get ejected for complete nonsense. Good Lord. That feels like an epidemic this year. Like, we've seen multiple ridiculous ejections. I think that was the 1-1, though, if we're doing a draft of what he got ejected for last game. But it was a ref show. Assuming he plays 4 quarters tonight versus Brooklyn, how do we feel about Joker and the rest of Denver?
Denver, I think, is pretty interesting tonight. Like, Jokic is just so expensive, so tough to get to. I think I would rather play Luka if I'm only playing one of them. I know I would rather play Luka if I'm playing one of them. I think really the only player, I was going to say on Denver, but probably this entire game, unless outside of maybe Braun, maybe Julian Strawther if he happens to start for Braun. But he's been priced way up. I think the only player in this entire game I have any interest in is Jamal Murray.
He seems a little too cheap, right? Assuming they're not really babying his minutes. Yeah, I like that call as well. What has his minutes been of late? Is he creeped above 30? And he was
sticking in that high 20s, low 30 range. I think 31 is the highest he's gotten so far.
But it's kind of baked in, right? Like, we've seen him like high 7s.
And like just the other night, he put up 50 plus fantasy points in 20 minutes, or 30 minutes. So he definitely can go out there and put up a ton of points in a short amount of time.
It's an island game for Denver as well. I think Murray's a good call here. It's on a slate that doesn't really have a ton of value, and I guess there's some value in Utah, and we'll try to figure that out soon enough. But besides that, it's not a plethora. We're trying to figure out. And like we've talked about 3 games, and we haven't exactly raved about anybody, right? It's like, oh, this guy's good, sure, but probably not. Maybe, I guess, possibly. This is another game where it's not looking incredible. If DFS is out, do we care? Probably not, right? They have enough wings that it almost doesn't matter. I don't say it doesn't matter, but does anybody move the needle?
No, but I'm not playing anybody on Brooklyn. I'm just out.
Yeah. I'm thinking about betting Denver. Feels like Denver just, hands it to Brooklyn. It's the old scheduled loss, back to back in Denver. Just a tough place to play. And obviously Denver's a really good team as well. No good prices. I'm trying to see. Yeah. If you want to play the blowout angle, like Watford or something like that. But that's, super thin. There's not a lot to like. I'm with you. I don't like Brooklyn at all. If you're playing 150, would you have the same thought process?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't play a single net.
Let's see. Want to see what's going on with the chat. Yeah, they're talking about the Joker ejection. Yeah, the Giannis had a terrible one earlier this year too, which was might have been the silliest, but okay. Let's move on. There's 3 more games. It's Utah. I didn't want to talk about this, but we gotta do it. Contractually obligated. Basketball will be played in Portland tonight. 225 is a total. Utah. The Blazers are 4-point favorites, 3.5-point favorites, 4-point favorites in a professional basketball game, which is just wild. But that's what happens when Utah is ruling out Markkanen and John Collins and Keontae George will be out for several games. Jordan Clarkson also going to be out for several games. They're on the back half of a back-to-back. Portland, we don't know. Seems like there's a decent chance we get Brogdon back. Seems like there's a decent chance we get Ayton back. Jeremy Grant's been in the concussion protocol for a while now. I hope he's okay. But typically these things don't take this long. Yeah. Let's knock out Portland first, and then we'll talk about Utah. What do you got as far as the Blazers?
We really don't know until Brogdon and Ayton, we have the status on them, right? Like, until if they're in, just Anthony Simons, like, that's really it. That's all I would want to get to. If they're out, it's still really just Anthony Simons in terms of who I'd want to play a lot of. Maybe I'd mix in a little Scoot Henderson, a little Tumani Kamara, and then Duop Reith would become a lot more interesting. But as it stands right now, if everybody's in, I kind of just want to play Anthony Simons. Like, if I'm running 150 lineups, maybe I would throw in Malcolm Brogdon just in case he comes right back and plays 35 minutes. But like, Anthony Simons is like, if I'm using a run back, it's 100% him. Not like 100% of Anthony Simons, but there's a 100% chance that he would be the one player I'd use if I was using a player on Portland.
But if you were to use Simons, it would be 100% Simons because you're playing one lineup.
True. As I'm narrowing down my pool, I was considering throwing 20 in that $4 20 entry max.
And why not? Have a good time. Simons getting 11%. Like, the price is baked up, but fully justified. He's very clearly, the shooter on this team. 23, 21, 27 shots in his 3 games back. I don't think Brogdon would hurt him a ton, or Ayton. I don't think they would hurt him enough where, like, you can't play him. Do you think that Brogdon start? Well, I'm done trying to predict Brogdon minutes. I've taken the L on that one. And would they just throw him back in and have him play 35 minutes? Like, to me, that seems wild, but
I would say if he plays, I would have him today at like
30.
I would say as like a median 28, 29, 30, as a max 32. Even if you look at like these last couple times, they don't put him in for crazy minutes his first game back. It's usually like the second or third that they are just like, all right, he's good again. Let's let him play a bunch.
Let's jump to Utah. We've kind of talked about this throughout the show multiple times.
For what it's worth, sorry, one thing quick before we jump away from that game specifically, Malcolm Brogdon is picking up a 24% ownership projection on FanDuel where he's $7,300.
Do you like that? Do you think that's a good play? If you obviously assuming he's back.
If he starts, I mean, if you're getting different elsewhere, or even if it's a cash game scenario, I don't think I'd be against playing $7,300 Brogdon, especially if I have like 3 or 4 Jazz on the other side on FanDuel.
Yeah, I mean, 7-3 on FanDuel is clearly much better than 8-3 on DK, obviously, and the ownership reflects it. So if you're going to play him, that is the place to play him. Utah, speaking of ownership, buckle up. Should I give it another refresh? Let's give it another refresh. It's probably basically going to be the same, but I do want to be as accurate as possible as we close in on lock. All right, so 7-game slate, Utah Jazz. We have several players over 50% projection. Kelly Olynyk, 53% projected center and center only. This is on DK, but I think most of this correlates on FanDuel as well. Feel free to jump over there and check that out if there's any disparities. Colin Sexton, he's got the rainbow when it comes to, Squirrel and Noto and Chop and Kirkwood, Taylor as well. 5-7, we're giving him 32 minutes. And the other part is it's a good matchup, right, against Portland. Portland is pretty horrendous. 51% ownership on Colin Sexton. Chris Dunn, 37%. Just 24 minutes of Chris Dunn, 37%. Fontecchio, 24%, 32 minutes. THT, who looks like they're going to dust him off, 24 minutes. Agbaji feels really thin to me. 32 minutes, 20 fantasy points, 4-5. I don't love that. And I do want to pull up his fantasy points per minute on the season. Pretty sure it's terrible. Yeah, 0.66, 12% usage. I mean, this stuff should get better playing alongside, not the stars, right? You're not playing alongside guys like Markkanen or Clarkson. So some of these players' season-long usage will get bumped up just because somebody's got to shoot. It might just be Colin Sexton. Walker Kessler, his thing is just like, don't seem to want to give him a ton of minutes. It feels like he's regressed from last year, but we're only giving him 26. He's not getting a ton of ownership, but like theoretically, he's a guy that can put up like 14 and 14 with like 4 or 5 stocks. Not saying that could happen, or is going to happen, but maybe. And yeah, okay, so there is 10 players available. They did give 2 minutes to Micah Potter, who knows if he's going to play or not. You're at 7 down to 18 minutes, who was just starting. You're at 7 was the starter. And look, would it shock you if you're at 7 scored more points than Kelly O? The way the Jazz season has gone?
Wouldn't surprise me if he starts either.
Yeah. I just think that if you're running one, you're supposed to lean into wide variance stuff on Utah because they are the hardest team to predict when it comes to their minutes, and especially in this situation where it's just and it's they don't care. It seems like there's no rhyme or reason. We saw Keontae George close the fourth quarter the other night in a game that was a 30-point blowout and just whatever. I'll turn it over to you as far as Utah. Any sort of rules? I saw was it Butto asking in the chat, is Colin Sexton a lock? I hesitate to call anybody on Utah a lock, but he's somebody who for sure playing cash games. Is there a path where he doesn't get there? Sure, I suppose. But he looks really good on paper, on a laptop. But yeah, Utah. Let's talk about it. Who do you want to start with?
The 2 players I would be okay with hitting the lock button on Utah would be Colin Sexton or Chris Dunn. The way I would go about it, though, personally, is I'd probably say I'd make a rule I want 1 to 2 of Sexton and Dunn in every lineup, because there's really no way to me that one of those 2 guys doesn't have a absolutely massive game, and it could be both. They could share the floor. They could close together. Even if Dunn doesn't play that big of minutes, he could have 30 DK points in 20 minutes today. So Dunn and Sexton are definitely priority 1 and 2. The one I'd be most likely to fade is Kelly Olynyk, just because he's they're not shorthanded at center. Walker Kessler, you're at 7. Potter, Taylor Hendricks. Olynyk is to me by far the easiest one who has a path to failure. Maybe I would play a couple year at 7 if I was running 150 lineups, but probably not, just because Kessler's there too. It would really just be all about Sexton and Dunn, priority 1 and 2, and then it's ridiculous to me that Fontecchio is not picking up more ownership. He's the guy that will get 38 minutes today if this stays close. He's the guy that, even if it doesn't, might get that closing run. He can play the 2, the 3, the 4, a small ball 5 if they really needed it. And this game went small. I think Fontecchio is probably my 3rd favorite play on this team, and I don't get why he's not picking up more ownership.
It's interesting. His big skill is making threes, and Portland actually gives him the 2nd fewest made threes to opponents. I'm guessing it's just because they're so vulnerable on the inside. Teams just go inside and just dunk on them. And I'm not saying you can't play him, but I just thought that was interesting to note, right? Portland has not given up a lot of threes. The 2nd fewest threes. We know what a funnel Indiana is. Everybody gets to Indiana on the inside. A lot of stuff in transition as well. But it's also the back half of a back-to-back. And we saw Kelly O have a really big game last night. And he's a veteran that they have no interest. They don't need to develop Kelly Olynyk. They probably trade him at some point if they can. And, if they can get something for him, anything for him around the deadline. You're at 7 is, a castaway from Miami. He's shown flashes here and there, but certainly limited. But, I absolutely see a scenario where they just say, okay, last night was the Kelly O, and tonight is your at 7. I do agree with your assessment of fading Kelly O is an interesting angle. Now we're talking about 50% owned, center and center only. Man, I think that's and like you said, he might just not start, and it might be your at 7 starting tonight. And this, are they the same price? Let's see, Kelly O is 5.3, your at 7's 5. Okay.
So if that happens, you just quick player replace, quick player swapped all of the Olynyk to your 7. But even if your 7 comes off the bench, I would, if I was playing 150, I would get him in a couple just in case. It's like Olynyk starts the first and third quarter and then they give up.
Yeah, and I don't really have a good read on Taylor Hendricks. I believe he was their lottery pick this year. If he was, I think he was their top pick. I don't know much about him though, but and he's only played 102 minutes all season this year, 0.68 fantasy points per minute, 13% usage. I think he's more of a rebounding guy. But do you have a read on Taylor Hendricks? I don't have much for you.
No, keep him in your pool in 150 just in case, but that's about it. I'm not playing him in single entry or anything like that.
Let's see. Butto is saying $5,100 for Fontecchio on DK is suspect. Let's see. Which is a real sentence. Yeah, they're making fun. And Butto's a person in chat, let's see. What else? Michael's saying Hendricks is a range shooter. Is he? Okay. I meant to look and see more about this player, but I just don't know much about him. Let's say you're in the $4 DK tournaments. How many of these Utah guys would you play in one lineup? I think we're getting like 4 or 5 in optimizers. I would not play more than 4. Might play 3. What say you?
My single entry team, I'm currently thinking that I'm going to roll Sexton, Chris Dunn, and Fontecchio as my 3 Jazz. I'd probably set a rule in MME that I'd limit it at 4. 2 to 4 is probably what I'd want on every team.
Yeah. Jeez. Anything else we should feature here? Anything else we should focus on? Again, pay attention to the starting lineup. And the projection team does an awesome job. They do a very, very good job. I'm just saying that it's really hard to project Utah. It's even harder to project Utah when it comes to like all these players being out. We've not seen this scenario. It's also the back half of a back-to-back. It's also versus a team like they probably wouldn't hate losing against. At least the front office probably wouldn't hate losing against Portland. I just think that, like, you know, you could have, if you want to tell yourself stories with some of these minutes and some of these Utah guys, I think it's okay. It's all like, if you want to just kind of go off the reservation a little bit. 9 players, I guess Micah Potter's the 10th guy. I don't know how much run he's going to get, but I think it's interesting to lead in. And Yurt 7 is one of those guys I'm looking at, even if he doesn't start. But yeah, it's tough. It's tricky for sure. Anything else we should say as far as Utah Portland?
No, sir.
We got 2 more. 2 more games left. OKC Sacramento 244.5 is a total. Sacramento is a 2-point favorite, so they're high. The game is high and it is tight. So theoretically, this is an amazing DFS spot, right? But just everybody is market price. Everybody's just too expensive, or basically where they should be priced. There's no discounts. We have 2 healthy teams, right? OKC is fully healthy. Lou Dortcher Chamber is off the injury report, so he should be good to go. Sacramento, we got Trey Lyles, who's questionable. That's not a big deal. It's not going to change a lot. Yeah, I mean, it's 2 full rosters. There's some studs that are great. We love Fox. We love SGA. I feel like it's a little bit more of a Sabonis play than it is a Fox play. I think just because, you know, Dortcher Chamber, a little revenge for Sabonis if you care about such things, but that's the old Jimmy Butler rule. At what point is revenge no longer a thing? Yeah. I want to try to get to this game, but I don't know how to do it, is sort of like the long and short of it, because I don't know if there's like one individual player. It's like, yep, that's the guy I want. But the environment's spectacular.
Yeah, this is probably my favorite game on the slate to target. Obviously, we have all the ugly value in the Utah game, but unless we get Anthony Edwards out and it makes Towns pop for me, SGA is probably my favorite spend up on the slate. Comes at a nice discount to below Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic. And then I want to run it back with Sabonis, that little mini stack. And if I can, I want to get Chet Holmgren in it as well. Holmgren, SGA, and then one of Sabonis or Fox is kind of like my favorite mini stack on the slate. That's where I'm going to be looking to spend my salary when I get value from Utah today. So On the Oklahoma City side of things, it's just those two for me, Chet Holmgren and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and they are two of my favorite plays on the slate. Maybe even Holmgren more than SGA. I think Holmgren might be my favorite play from this game. And then on the Sacramento side of things, one of Sabonis or Fox. I really like both of them for tournaments today. And then if you land on Keegan Murray or Kevin Huerter as a last piece, I think that's totally fine too.
Giddey's like been threatening to get like triple doubles these last several games. He's been pretty good, but his minutes are just, it's like he doesn't really fit with his team. They're keeping him like the mid-20s or so, in part because
a lot of other threatening things about him as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there about him. It's I guess we'll save that for another show. But like, there's no guarantee he closes. I was playing him at like 5'8", 5'9" on different slates, and now he's at the 6K, which again still playable. It's just I'm trying to make something happen. And like this feels like a game where he can like threaten for an 8-8-8 kind of line, right? Which it could be useful, but maybe I'm just trying to make something happen here. I'm trying to find something in this game that is not necessarily popping, but I don't have anything else to add as far as OKC Sacramento. You got anything?
Yeah, I like it a lot, but it's just that small crew. It's the spend ups here. If I'm landing on a mid range guy, it's Huerter or what's his face, Keegan Murray. But it's really just Chet Holmgren and SGA, and then Sabonis or Fox. That's my favorite spend up mini stack on the slate.
Crunch time crew coming in about 10 minutes or so. You got Roth, you got SquirrelPatrol, and you have Kyler Murray. We're going to catch Roth off guard. We're going to see if he's ready to go and give us the Fanduel read. Earlier in the show, if you missed it, I was praising. Well, we could save all this, but we're going to have I don't want to repeat it again in 10 minutes. But yeah, we're going to have a read off, the Fanduel read in 10 minutes or so. TJ was, he dropped the gauntlet, and it's going to be fun. And the Vegas line is down to 190. You're right. The line was
Let's be real. The challenge came from you, not me.
Am I just stirring the pot? Is that what's happening? That's probably what's happening.
Yes, that's what always happens.
Well, TJ, this slate is not fun. So we're trying to chicken salad, right? We're trying to have some fun here on the slate. We're trying to do something to make things interesting. But feel free to fire up some questions in chat. We're going to knock out those questions. I know questions most of the time reserve for crunch time, but we got 10 minutes until the crunch time crew comes in. So certainly plenty of time for questions. Let's answer one of these questions before we talk about Golden State and the Clippers. Somebody was asking, geez, I lost the question now. Kelly was asking, who is the best spend up tonight? Which is kind of a tricky question because, well, you tell me. And obviously there's some parameters of like if and then, but as we stand right now, your favorite spend up is who?
As we stand right now, I would say SGA.
Okay. Golden State and the Clippers. We're looking at 231 as far as the total. Clippers are 5-6 point favorites here. We know Draymond is out. We're doing Draymond things. He's out indefinitely. Gary Payton II not playing basketball as well tonight. He's going to be out for a while. We don't know about Paul George. Paul George has a groin. Well, it's a good thing that Draymond's out. If Paul George he already comes into the game with a groin, Draymond would smell blood there for sure. That's one of his one of his go-to spots. In any event, we want to monitor Paul George and his groin and see if he's available tonight. If he doesn't play, certainly a little bit shuffling up there on the Clippers side. Players like James Harden and Kawhi Leonard, they would get boost as well. But this is the Thursday Night Hammer. Your thoughts?
I think I'm going to do what you were talking about and just only play players in the 10 p.m. slate. Like, I think I'm just going to completely ignore not just the first 2 games, but the first 4 games. I think that's the plan. Make this a little 3-game slate. Use Utah for value, and then just play a bunch of OKC, Sacramento, and Golden State Clippers because, my 2 favorite ways to build around Utah are either the spend ups in that OKC and Sacramento game and go with the SGA, the Fox, the Holmgren, or my next favorite way is, especially if Paul George is out, getting us a Harden or primarily Kawhi Leonard on the other side of things, and Kawhi would probably be my next favorite spend up on the slate, and he's a nice cheap mid-range one. And then like if we get George out, obviously that just enhances these guys. But somebody in chat asked about Podziemski. Butthole did. Our guy Butthole asked about Podziemski. Yeah, I think he's a great play. Him and Kuminga both, I think, are amazing tournament, low-owned tournament, mid-range, cheap-ish plays today. And then, yeah, if you happen to get Paul George out, it opens up Norman Powell, but he's been priced up. He was below 4K before, and now he's 5,700. 52 on Fanduel is a little more palpable. I think he's fine, but I don't think he's a priority. Like Terrence Mann too, they're up over 5K, so I don't think they're priorities. It would mainly just be Kawhi and Harden for me.
So another reason to wait just for the 10 o'clock stuff, right, is what is the Golden State lineup going to be? We saw at halftime, you mentioned Podziemski. He started the second half because, well, not just Podziemski, but Kuminga. Kuminga started the second half. They benched Looney and they benched Wiggins. I actually bet Wiggins under points today in the hopes that that's going to continue going forward because he's been a certified disaster this year. He actually only played like 6 minutes yesterday in the second half. Was it yesterday? Was it the day before? I'm losing it. Against Phoenix. Yeah, same point though. He came on in the middle of the third, didn't play any minutes in the fourth. He played like 6 minutes or so. Looney had one little shift of like 4 minutes in the third quarter. We never saw him again. And this was a game that was close. And in the second half, we saw Kuminga play. Let's see, I'm pulling it up here in the Court IQ. First 7 minutes, and I think like the last 6 minutes or so, right? So I would want a few more minutes than that, but still, maybe we see Chris Paul start. I think changes are coming. And I think there's a really good chance that Looney's benched. And I think there's a decent chance that Wiggins is benched. And I'm not certain it's going to be Podziemski jumping in there, but I think Kuminga's got a decent shot to start. Maybe Sharich getting a little bit more run too. But I want to see what that starting lineup's going to be. And again, you're not going to know Golden State starting lineup at 8 o'clock. You might not even know it at 10 o'clock, actually. Hopefully, Kerr will help us out with that. But that could be another potential edge. That's the only 10:30 game. But knowing Utah's starting lineup, which is a little bit more predictable, just there's only so many pieces it could be. But maybe it's you're at 7 and not Olynyk, but that's when you can just sort of swap in because you're at 7 is cheaper than Kelly O if you're starting with Kelly O.
On that same note, like with Draymond being out, I think even Dario Saric makes for a very interesting tournament play off of Kelly O. Like both of these teams are going to be so difficult to project that it is legitimately a reasonable possibility that Dario Saric not only outscores, but plays more minutes than Kelly Olynyk tonight. If at the end of the day, we find out that Kelly Olynyk plays 22 minutes and Dario Saric plays 27, are we really going to be surprised? And Saric is
I wouldn't be shocked.
No, and Saric is going to have 2% ownership probably. Like right now we're projecting him for 0.05% ownership. He's going to be nearly unowned, and Kelly Olynyk's going to be up over 50%, potentially more, probably like 70% in high stakes stuff. So I think Saric is a very interesting 1-for-1 pivot at only $200 more.
We are projecting Curry, Thompson, Wiggins, Kuminga, and Looney, and I guess that's the way you kind of have to project it. But again, I really think it wouldn't surprise me if we lose Looney or Wiggins or both. If Saric starts, Pods maybe, Paul maybe, possibly. We'll see. But again, just a little bit more reason to possibly backload your lineup. Are there other questions in the chat? I know a lot of times you'll just go ahead and answer. You're typing in there. You're just having a conversation in chat. I thought you were answering one of the questions there. Herbert's saying Olynyk X button. It's, if Kelly
if you're playing a
Olynyk
cash team, make sure he's in there. But if you're running a bunch of tournaments, I don't hate that at all. It's like it's super scary because Kelly Olynyk could legitimately have 50 fantasy points tonight. He does that sometimes, where if he gets the minute, he just decides to go off. He's shooting well. He gets a bunch of rebound. He's passing. They run the damn offense through him. But there's other times where he just decides to disappear. Or there's times that even when he's good, he just they just pull him out of the game. Like, he's one of the most volatile players in the NBA from a fantasy point standpoint. And so I love that fade in tournaments. It's scary because he's like we always joke about in baseball, Cheese has his Robbie Ray rule. That's essentially Kelly Olynyk can play 20 minutes off the bench and score you 40 fantasy points and win you a tournament as a value when he's 4,500. But 50+% ownership, like that's to me, that just screams fade for Kelly O in tournaments.
If Paul George doesn't go, the two big values, and I don't like to use the word DK value, right? Because they're not value plays per se as far as salary. James Harden would have a projection, basically the same projection. Harden and Kawhi will both be projecting for around 45, 44 DK Fanduel points as a median projection. Nobody else will be a technical value. Norman Powell would be on Fanduel. He would be a value on Fanduel with a slight negative value on DK, assuming there's a distinct difference in their price. Yeah. Okay. So Powell's 5.2 on Fanduel and 5.7 on DK. And that's why Powell will become a very, very strong play on Fanduel. Let's see. T from LOC says, who's my guy? I like Kuminga. I like Kuminga a good bit tonight. I think he's one of my favorite plays. He's almost definitely going to be on my main lineup. Even if he doesn't start, I'm hoping he starts. I assume he starts. But let's see. How much stock do you place on a player's percentage? So the percentage of winning lineups. You probably have more. You probably adapted more with that as far as lineup HQ. How much do you handle that as far as, how much do you care about that? This is the player's projected ownership. This is the percent of time they're going to be in the winning lineup. How much does that factor in your thought process when it comes to building lineups?
Where is this? I don't even think I know what we're talking about.
Is that not something that's in Slate IQ?
Oh, Slate IQ or lineup HQ?
It might be in both.
I genuinely have never looked at Slate IQ before.
Okay. Yeah. I know I've seen it before somewhere. And yeah, our apologies. We should know this, right? I'm not somebody that makes 150 lineups, so that's just not really something I dig into. I know people. I like the
opto percentage, like how often they're optimal, which I don't know if that's potentially the same stat.
I think that's what they're asking. Yeah, I think that's
okay. Yeah. Sorry, just different words. Yeah, I do like that a lot. So for a perfect example of, we're projecting 51% ownership on Colin Sexton, and this fits perfectly well to what we were saying. Opto percentage. Thank you for clarifying. I probably should have assumed that. That was my bad. And so this perfectly fits what we were saying today. The opto percentage on Colin Sexton tonight is 46.6%, and he's 51.2% owned. That's good chalk. He's going to be optimal half the time, so he should be in half the lineups. Kelly Olynyk, what do you think is, without looking, what do you think his optimal percentage is?
Oh, it's funny. I just clicked on the button as you said that. So
24%.
Which doesn't feel as good. Yeah.
Kelly Olynyk is going to be higher owned, but has half the optimal percentage. So I think I do look at it. It's not the be all end all for me. It's not the only thing that matters, because you throw in some ceiling games and things get different there, especially for players that are tough to project because they don't typically play a lot of minutes and you don't really know what to expect from them. But yes, optimal percentage is something I use very often, especially more for football more often than anything else. But yes, it is an important stat I like to use for basketball as well. Just didn't quite understand the question at the beginning.
Kelly's asking in chat, Westbrook, a good play at 5,900 if George is out. It's a much better play on Fanduel than he is on DK. His projection would be about 28 Fanduel points. And again, the price difference is massive. 7.6 on DK. That is really, really hard to talk to. I would need Harden out too. They don't like to cross Westbrook and Harden over anymore these days. But 5.9 on Fanduel. That's much more, palatable, I suppose. So, yeah, you can play him on Fanduel, but on DK, very hard to do that. I'm Authentic is saying Joker blowout. Maybe. I don't know. Is Denver going to blow up Brooklyn? I kind of like the Denver side in that game. What's the line, around 10 or so? Play Joker if you like Joker. I'm not going to not play him because, oh man, what if the game blows out? If I can play him, I'm playing him. That's sort of my approach. What about you?
Yeah, same thing. Like if I can play him, I'll play him. But I'm much more interested in getting to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Domantas Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox, Kawhi Leonard. Nice, cheaper group of players, and then add Karl Anthony Towns to that list if Anthony Edwards is out. That's where I'm looking to go today instead of spending all the way up.
Amanda says, what about if Joker getting ejected? Yeah, we can't. That's not in the projections. I wouldn't think we would get ejected in back-to-back games, but they ejected him on Serbian Heritage Night, too. Come on. I mean, that's outrageous. Nobody showed up to see the ref, wherever that happened to be. Butto, his Feel It in the Plums play tonight is Naz Reid for 40 points. I feel like I haven't played Naz in a while. James is asking about DeAndre Ayton. We're not certain if he's going to play or not, but are we interested in DeAndre Ayton if he plays?
No, I'd play Reith if he doesn't play, though.
What's the price on Reith? I didn't check because I know we're projecting. Is it still like in the fours?
Yeah, 4,500.
Yeah, he can rebound and he can hit some threes. He does some stuff out there. Let's see. Okay, so DJJ and THJ are officially available. Is that the news according to Derek and chat? I've not hit the Twitter, but I assume
Both of them available. Porzingis is available. Devontae Adams is available.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking about Devontae Adams, but that is good to know. You know who else is available? Kevin Roth is available. And welcome back, Roth. We're going to catch you off guard. I don't know if anybody's tipped you off or not, but throughout this show, I may have instigated this. I was talking about we were doing a read, right? And by the way, I don't know where Roth's coming from. He's some parts unknown somewhere, but it looks spectacacular behind us.
Thank you. Live from my mom's guest room. Yep.
Oh, very nice. Oh, so you're still you're kind of sort of vacationing in the middle of vacation?
Sort of, yeah. But eventually you got to get back to work, you know?
Are you going out to dinner tonight? You're dressed if I put a number on it, you're dressed to the nines.
Yeah, no, I've got pants on. I'm sitting on a bed. I'm wearing red pants. I was
very pink. Dinner. Those are flashy. You look ready to go golfing.
It's pretty snazzy. I was at dinner and it ran long, and I had to sprint home from dinner to make it to the show. So I'm sweating. I'm sitting in a bed, and I'm overall I'm fairly miserable, but I'm here, Dean.
Was a vehicle not available, or you just what do you mean you sprinted home?
So I decided to leave the vehicle for the wife and kids. And just, man up and just do the run. Just ran a mile. I think I broke 8 minutes. I don't know, but I made it. That's what counts.
Do they have Uber in parts unknown?
They probably do, but when you're a mile away, you're like, I could probably just run this out. It might even be faster. So that was the route. It was a poor choice, but that's what I chose.
So here you go, Roth. We were doing a read. I was doing a read, and out of nowhere, I decided to praise you. I said, you know what? Because, when we get the email.
You already got the story wrong.
Well,
you didn't decide to praise him out of nowhere. It was because you were talking about how tough it is to say props and pick'em package. And I said, you're lucky you don't have to say.
Let's talk about the steak.
You're lucky. I said, you're lucky you don't have to say all the ones on the FanDuel read.
Yeah, and then I was saying, as an aside, Roth is spectacular at that. It's amazing. You can wake up Roth at 4:00 in the morning. He can knock that thing out like out of a dead sleep. And TJ over here, he doesn't like when anybody else is getting praised but himself. So he wants to hear praise on TJ and TJ only. So he couldn't stand for that. And he says, you know what? I know you're praising Roth, but I can read that just as fast as Roth can. And I said, no, you can't. That's ridiculous. You may be good, but Roth's the best.
Yeah,
and Vegas set a line. It's you're minus 400, Roth, and we're gonna we got to have a clock, and we got to have a read off. You got to read it anyway. I don't know if TJ wants to set the line, but TJ goes first, and then Roth will show him up.
I said the line should be Roth minus 180. I said 400 was egregious.
Yeah. And just remember, it's not just about speed. It's about really delivering it too. We're not just trying to run through it. You got to do it with diction and enunciation, TJ, but go for it. We'll get the people some content. But if you think you can outread me, TJ, by all means, outread me.
All right, here I am. And like Kelly gets it in chat. Here I was the other day, just giving props to Dean, and I'm always giving props to Roth as the best hosts around. And Dean's just throwing me under the bus because I said, I just got a little speed too. I said, no shade to Roth. Same as we were talking about basketball. I said, no shade to Roth. I just got a little game as well. But, we're lucky because we're here at RotoGrinders. We're on GrindersLive. We're transitioning from GrindersLive to Crunch Time. And the fun fact about Crunch Time is it's presented by FanDuel. And you can bet $5 on any money line, get $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 years or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
That was strong. That was very strong. Slight deduction for Maryland. A little bit of a mumble on Maryland. I don't know if you guys caught that. A little bit of a mumble on Maryland. That's what Roth was talking about as far as diction. So the judges are going to dock you for that. But Roth, are you willing to see that and raise it?
Yeah, I think this would be a good way to launch into the show. As TJ mentioned, Crunch Time is presented by Fanduel. Bet $5 on any money line. Get $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 and up. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
It's over. The Vince Carter gift.
It's done. You're done. I dare you, TJ.
I'm going to lie. I think I was faster, but yours sounds a lot better.
What does the chat think? The chat's going to let us know. What does Squirrel and Kyle think? They're impartial. They have no.
Yours had a lot more intensity and sounded. It was a much better read in general.
I wasn't going to sign up until Roth told me. Like, oh wait, hold on a second. That sounds really good.
It's done. The chat has decided. It's over. We do appreciate TJ. You know I love you. You did a solid 9. You did great. You played great, but I'm a great player. That's the difference. You read great, but I'm a great reader. That's the difference here.
We'll see. I'm going to go and check the tape immediately after this. Started at the first state, ended at the last state. See which one came with some faster speed.
Roth also, like, off the couch, hasn't played like in 5 days or so, right?
Yeah.
He's a little bit rusty. Give him a couple of decimal points for that as well too. But we do appreciate y'all watching the first portion. We're gonna go ahead and yield the Fanduel sponsor Crunch Time. You got Kevin Roth, you got SquirrelPatrol, you got Kyle. Roth, take it away.
Good stuff as always. Welcome to it. As we mentioned, the show is sponsored by Fanduel. I don't have to do the read. We just did it twice, so I think we're covered there. I'm still out of breath, not from the read, but from the mile run to get to the show. I am literally still sweating. I feel disgusting, but I'm thrilled to be joined by two of the sharpest minds in the biz. We got my guy Squirrel in the house. What up, Squirrel?
Yeah, not much. This is just about like one of the worst NBA slates I've seen. Yeah. But yeah, I'm glad you ran home from dinner for it. Yeah, it's just a mess because there's still so much questionable injury news. And the guys were kind of talking about this game plan. And it's funny because I was just doing my usually Friday show with James to win the Sunday football slate. And this Sunday for the football games, like all of the high scoring games are in the afternoon. In this slate, like all of the games that you probably want are in the like late window, except for maybe some Miami pieces from like for one of the 7:30 games. But we really need to wait on like who the Utah starting lineup is because like everybody's out for Utah. So we just want to see who's starting there. And it's not just salary. We want to like see what roster spots people fit into.
Yeah. Okay. That does not sound very fun. You're right. So it's backloaded and we're waiting for news. I do not love slates like that. Kyle, I feel like usually when I see a slate size of like 6-7 games, I think we've got 7 tonight. That's the spot. That's where we like it. But are you with Team Squirrel where game size, right, but actual game situations not fun?
Yeah, pretty much. This is like a good sweet spot for games. I think that you kind of have a range. I would say like 7 to 9 where, I feel pretty good about those games sizes anyway. But yeah, it's kind of a weird slate with the news and whatnot. So yeah, pretty much agree 100% with what Squirrel said. And hopefully we get some news as we go on. But yeah, I do think it's going to be a spot where it might pay off, especially in cash, to maybe leave yourself some flexibility later on.
Okay, fair enough. Kyle, I assume you're going to walk us through the cash side of things and Squirrel will do tournaments. Is that accurate?
Yep, sounds good to me.
Okay, well, why don't you zoom out for me real quick, pretend that someone is still half on vacation surrounded by pelicans and hasn't been paying attention all day, because there might be someone out there in that boat. We don't know. We're not sure. So let's kind of walk through what we're looking for, what we're waiting on, and then from there, just take it into FanDuel Cash and walk me through a build.
Yeah, sounds good. First of all, anyone who is surrounded by pelicans, hopefully you got a nice little workout in. That's between the run and the reading. That I would
get your run in. Yeah, you got to get the run in even on vacay.
I'll be falling over.
Squirrel mentioned we've got some news that we're waiting for. Can you kind of clarify what exactly we need to know?
Yeah, definitely. So I think from a zooming out perspective, the first thing is the Utah side. Obviously, like Squirrel mentioned, pretty much everybody's out for Utah there. So we have to really monitor the starting lineup there, and there's gonna be a lot of expected value in terms of some guys that stand out that are questionable, that are big names. Jaylen Brown, Anthony Edwards. Those are the two I would say the two big ones right now. A couple other names in the late games as well. Paul George questionable. And then Malcolm Brogdon, smaller type name, but could still affect some things. And then DeAndre Ayton, another name. I would say those are probably the big ones that are questionable. If I miss anyone, Squirrel, feel free to throw a name out there. But I think those are the big names that we're still waiting on.
Jaylen Brown is in.
Oh, is it? Okay, cool.
Yeah, we could further dilute those early games.
Okay, that helps. So yeah, after that, the late games, the late guys that I mentioned there are still kind of the big pieces that we're waiting on.
Okay, very good. Well, let's jump into it. The show is sponsored by Fanduel. We'll start with a Fanduel cash build. And if you could hit a few guys at each position that you think are cash viable, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, definitely. So like I mentioned, the Utah guys, I think a lot of these guys are going to stand out from the Utah side. So point guard and shooting guard eligible, Chris Dunn at 4-4. He stands out as a guy who might make it in the lineups. In terms of the spend ups there, SGA and Luka, I think a lot of people are going to kind of start their lineups there with one of these two guys. Obviously, Luka with no Kyrie makes a lot of sense. We're currently projecting him for 40 minutes. So, a lot of expected production there for Luka. But SGA also projects pretty well in terms of where he's priced, $1,200 cheaper than Luka. So maybe even easier to get him in a lineup. So I think those two guys will probably kind of start a lot of lineups over on FanDuel. So yeah, those two as the top end guys. Chris Dunn as a pretty strong value option. Colin Sexton as well. I believe he's shooting guard only on FanDuel, but still in that guard discussion. And then Malcolm Brogdon, who I did mention as questionable, he's also in play as a cash game option, I would say. And then if Paul George is in fact ruled out, James Harden would also be in play. I think 8-1 on FanDuel, pretty good price tag. You would assume more usage there for him, and what is currently expected to be a pretty close game. So you could expect a good amount of minutes there for Harden. So I would say that's kind of the headline for the guards and the point guard, shooting guard guys. In terms of some players who are shooting guard only, like I mentioned, Sexton, he's one. And then after that, it's a lot of guys who are multi-position eligible, like Chris Dunn, Malcolm Brogdon. You do have Paul George there at 8-6 on FanDuel, who I do think could be potentially cash game considered if you wanted to at 8-6. The price isn't bad there, but again, you have to wait on the news. You could make a pivot though to James Harden if Paul George is ruled out. So there's something that you could do there if you wanted to go with one of those Clippers guards, or maybe even just sort of keep in mind that you wanted to potentially leave a spot for Harden if possible. You could just start with Paul George and then pivot to Harden if you needed to. But other than that, I think that's pretty much it for guys who are really strong cash game plays. Moving over to small forward, Jimmy Butler, I think you could consider here. Small forward and power forward eligible. I think he makes some sense, especially if you are trying to get away from Paul George, who could potentially fit into some of these cash lineups. So I think Butler's probably one of my favorite guys in the small forward, power forward range at that price. He's kind of a tier 2 guy that you could potentially be spending up for. Obviously, the Miami guys dealing with a good amount of injuries there as well, with Hero and Bam being out. But again, like Squirrel mentioned, that's going to sort of leave you locking up that salary early. But I think you can make an exception for Butler because he does, grade as a pretty strong play here in a matchup against Chicago with those guys out. DeRozan's 8-2. He's probably a guy who I wouldn't want to tie the salary up with. I would prefer Butler there. But he is, at a fairly fair price point there. So that's probably the last small forward that I would really go on to mention. I guess Jaime Jaquez is also in play as well at 5-5, but I don't think he's an overly incredible play to where you needed to lock up that salary early. But I do think he's in play if you wanted to go there. And then Fontecchio from Utah as well, 5K. Probably one of the better names on the slate, but also going to see a nice minutes uptick and a little bit of a usage bump. He's not a terrible permanent producer either there for Utah, obviously with all those guys out. So it's probably the last player from the small forward position I'll mention. And then power forward, Kelly Olynyk makes some sense here. He is center and power forward eligible. Prefer to use him at power forward if you can. In cash builds on FanDuel, he's 5'3". He grades out as, I believe, the best RG value play on the slate. So obviously he's going to be very popular and find his way into a lot of lineups there. Sabonis is a spend up option that you could consider there at power forward. 9.6, I believe is his price. Yeah, 9.6 on FanDuel, power forward and center eligible. So he's in play as a spend up option. Same thing goes for Kawhi, where we talked about the Paul George and Harden swap. You could do the same thing for Kawhi at small forward if you wanted to play one of those Clippers guys and then pivot off of Paul George if you needed to. A couple other power forwards that stand out. Aaron Gordon is somewhat in play. I don't love it, but he does project pretty well, so you could probably consider him in cash games if you wanted to. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I like Sabonis, but I think I prefer the other spend ups a little bit more and building around those guys. But in terms of centers, Chet Holmgren makes some sense here at 8K as a cash game option. I like him a little bit here. Zubac at 6'4", Ayton at 7'2" if he's in. And then obviously you have Jokic as a spend-up option at 12.4. I do think I give the slight edge to Luka if deciding between those two guys here, but obviously it's, I'm never going to be upset to play Jokic there. But I do think that, I think it's 10-point spread or 9.5-point spread there. Looks like it's actually, 9.5 for Jokic compared to the much closer expected game. It is a difficult matchup for Luka, to be fair, but I still prefer Luka slightly with no Kyrie there. But again, think it's totally fine to go Jokic. Never going to be upset with playing the best player in the league. So that's pretty much it for the cash game, guys.
Okay, great breakdown. And as Derek in chat notes, great hair. Derek says, Kyle's hair makes me feel it in my plums.
Oh, boy.
I got to check. It's like boy band hair. Really, really doing a lot. And good stuff. Kudos to the stylist. Squirrel, your hair looks phenomenal as well.
It's not all about hair. Just saying.
It's about the plays. We're not here for the hair. Squirrel, you're very emotive when Kyle's doing his reads. I feel like you had thoughts. I'll let you go.
Well, one thing, so it's like totally not relevant to the slate, but something Kyle was mentioning about, Paul George is questionable, might be out. I was like, I've got Terrence Mann in my season-long team, so I got to make sure I have him in the active lineup. I realized I'm actually playing Kyle this week.
Yeah.
So Terrence Mann comes back and wins me the week. It'll be his fault for being on
That's awesome. Hey, I got a great question here, Squirrel. I want to get your tournament takes on FanDuel, but I love this question from Hoosiers Hang Banners. I want to start with this. He says, is there a Utah guy you would rather see come off the bench rather than start because lower ownership and then maybe increase usage with the second unit? Is there one of those guys where if he doesn't start, you're like, oh, good, now he's my dude?
So, maybe like Omar Yurtseven. So I think Kelly Olynyk is going to be extremely popular, but they're probably going to split the minutes, the big man minutes. They were talking about it on the early show, the question of how the breakdown works between Kelly Olynyk and Yurtseven is pretty significant. So maybe prefer Yurtseven to come off the bench just in terms of ownership. And you can maybe go over the field on him. Kelly Olynyk's going to be really, really highly owned, 70% or something. Mm-hmm. There's a clear path there where Kelly Olynyk has a bad game, goes to the bench, Yurtseven is having a great game, foul trouble, whatever happens. And that's a direct pivot point. So yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, great answer. Let's walk through FanDuel tournament build, and then after that, we'll kick it to DK.
So just one big tournament thought. So I said at the top, I think it's a really good slate to not play anybody from the early games, or maybe you're playing one Miami guy, something like that. And you're just building around that. In terms of a tournament overview, the Sacramento Oklahoma City game has a 14-point higher total than almost every other game on the slate. I think than every other game on the slate. So that's a game that I'm really interested in getting maximum exposure to. And not playing the early games actually helps me with that. So one dynamic is when you're running optimal lineups or just looking at projections, you're just getting a ton of Utah guys. We don't really know how the minutes are going to break down. And it's not like that game's got a 280-point total or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's 225. Utah's an underdog by 4 against Portland. So we're kind of middling the projections. And I think even, across the industry, that's just kind of how it's done. It's we don't know who's going to start here. So we're going to give them a median projection based on this presumed number of minutes.
But we don't really know.
Yeah. We don't really know. And so when we actually get the starting lineup, and even more when the game actually starts, the number of points put up is going to look way different than it does in like these median projections where we don't know like who's playing however many minutes.
Right.
So I like the idea of actually being overweight to the Sacramento Oklahoma City game. In particular, like Domantas Sabonis, like my top spend up. Because I think a lot of people are thinking in terms of top spend ups, like go to like Luka or Jokic. Sabonis, like Oklahoma City gives up the second most rebounds in the league per game. And if it wasn't for like Washington having a historically bad rebounding season, like most years, Oklahoma City would be giving up the most rebounds in the league per game. So that's like spells good things for Sabonis. They're also like Thunder are pretty up there in points per game allowed. So that's just one quick thought. In terms of like tournament plays, like along that vein, like starting at point guard, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or De'Aaron Fox, like probably not going to be that highly owned because people are trying to like squeeze in some Utah value guys. I like maybe you go to one of those guys as a spend up. Or if you are playing a bunch of like the Utah guys, play Anthony Simons. We're kind of waiting on the Malcolm Brogdon news. If he's in or out, like maybe Brogdon's a guy you want to play, or you can go to like Scoot Henderson if Brogdon is out. Shooting guard position, it's actually incredibly difficult to get away from the Utah guys because there's Colin Sexton, Chris Dunn, Taylor Horton-Tucker, and Ochai Agbaji. All are shooting guard eligible on FanDuel. Malik Monk is there. That's like my maybe preferred tournament pivot is going to the Sacramento Oklahoma City game, or James Harden. I think he's got like a point milestone that the Clippers like PR team is like sending out a tweet about. And that becomes like significant if Paul George is declared out. Again, we might not know this for like another couple of hours. Small forward, DeMar. I like DeMar DeRozan if you're going to play a piece that's not from Miami in the early games. And that's, but I would still kind of prefer Taylor Horton-Tucker, Kawhi Leonard, Fontecchio, like depending on who's starting, or go to Lou Dort in the Oklahoma City Sacramento game. Power forward is where you start to just see a bunch of Kelly Olynyk. But I like the idea of paying up for Sabonis, and you can like still fit in Olynyk into a Sabonis lineup on FanDuel, or Kawhi Leonard. Is also somebody that's like he's going to get a huge boost if Paul George is out. He's been doing really well lately. So somebody obviously to consider. Center position, again, dominated by Kelly Olynyk, but I don't mind the idea of playing like Yurtseven instead because it's a direct pivot off of Olynyk. Can also put in Sabonis. Obviously, it's center position, Jokic at center position, and maybe Chet Holmgren if you want to get different, but still play the Sacramento Oklahoma City game.
Okay, very nice. Good stuff. We got to kick it to DK here. We still have 19 minutes until lock, which is plenty of time. So, Kyle, what is different on DK? And then just walk me through a build position by position.
Yeah, I do think a lot is fairly similar over there on DK. So obviously a lot of the news, obviously that stuff's going to carry over a lot. I think the one key difference there is the Luka price it seems a little bit easier to fit in over there on DraftKings. So I would say Luka as more of a priority as your cash game spend up is the big difference between the two sites. But again, I still think SGA is a very strong play. Jokic is still a very strong play. So I think all three of those guys are really good spots to start your lineups with. But on DraftKings becomes Luka a little bit more so as a priority there.
Okay, and real quick before you get into it, I love Squirrel's thoughts on Sabonis. Do you have interest in Sabonis, or in cash he's not making it?
Yeah, I think he's a really strong player. I think you can make a case for him. I actually think his FanDuel price is pretty good, and it's good on DraftKings too. And I think if you can fit him, it's definitely fine. Like, for example, the build I was talking about on FanDuel was, a Butler and Holmgren lineup. Like, you could easily just go down to, someone about probably $1,500 cheaper at the power forward position, and then spend up for Sabonis, and do really well that way. And I think Sabonis is a really strong play, so no problem doing that. I think in cash, though, specifically, I do like to first get one of those top studs in, one of these top three with Jokic, Luka, and SGA. But if you can fit Sabonis as your second spend up piece and your second person in, I think that's an awesome move, especially on DraftKings. I think it's a really strong play on DK as well. So yeah, no problem with that, and that would be great if you have the salary to do so.
Great. Okay. Very cool. Let's walk through it position by position over on DK, and then we'll get Squirrel's tournament thoughts right after that.
Yeah, sounds good. So again, point guards or just guards in general, Luka and SGA as spend up options. Those two guys are really strong options. Sexton is point guard and shooting guard eligible on DraftKings. I believe he only has shooting guard on FanDuel, so a little bit more added flexibility there. Just kind of makes it even more, carefree kind of play, right? He's going to be a cash play. I think he's going to be in a lot of lineups, and he probably should be at 5-7, especially if he is starting. I will say they could probably do a lot of weird things with the starting lineup here. So if there is a world where Sexton doesn't start, I don't think it's all that likely, but they could do a lot of weird things. So I guess I would just keep an eye out for it there. Anthony Simons also pops a little bit here as a cash game piece, 7-8 on DraftKings, point guard and shooting guard eligible. He's had a ton of usage here for this Portland team, and Malcolm Brogdon's questionable. So if Brogdon is out, that only helps Simons, but I don't even think he necessarily needs Brogdon to be out there. He's just had a ton of usage here in this offense, and obviously Jeremy Grant out. It's going to continue to allow Simons to have the ball in his hands a lot and play a lot of minutes. So I like Simons quite a bit here. I think, in terms of some other options down the board a little bit, Chris Dunn at 4-3, he's a value option. Tim Hardaway, 6K, he's shooting guard and small forward eligible. Dante Exum has been fantastic. I don't know if he's quite in cash consideration there, but it wouldn't be the craziest thing to see him in some lineups. But again, prefer Hardaway there at $600 cheaper, 6K on DraftKings. And then back to the Clippers discussion with using Harden and Paul George, or maybe starting with Paul George, being able to pivot to Harden, whatever it may be. I do think that is a good spot to sort of have those those pivots ready to go there. In terms of forwards there, I think Jimmy Butler, Jason Tatum, those names still remain there. Cheaper guys, Fontecchio again, THT at 5K on DraftKings. So a lot of the same names. Tim Hardaway Jr. as well. He's small forward eligible. And then onto the centers, Sabonis I think is a strong play. Kelly Olynyk, again on DraftKings, you get to play two centers when possible because you have the utility spot there. So even makes Olynyk a better play, even though he's not power forward eligible like he is on FanDuel. Sabonis, again, really strong play. I think if you can fit him on DraftKings, he's probably even a better play than Holmgren over there. But Holmgren I still think is a strong play as well. So that's probably the main guys highlighting the center position. A lot of the same names.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. Squirrel, I will bring you in. And I assume you have a similar strategy here on DK as what you're doing on FanDuel?
Yeah, similar strategy. It's a little bit difficult. I'm getting a lot more like Colin Sexton. I'm getting a ton of Colin Sexton on both sides. So I just started at the point guard position. But yeah, it's like Colin Sexton to the next guard that is the same price or lower is like there's like a 13, 14 point difference on DraftKings. If you're not I'm playing like a lot of Colin Sexton at point guard, a lot of Chris Dunn at 4,300. Something that's interesting is like last night, like Colin Sexton started, Chris Dunn came off the bench and played the minutes Sexton wasn't playing. Mm-hmm. So if you are looking to limit your exposure to like the Utah guys, you can just play one of those guys. Potentially, that's not necessarily something that's guaranteed to hit. Like they could both very well be in the starting lineup, or they could both very well like have big games for their price. But like let's say they don't. One of them could just have the big game because they tend to not overlap minutes that much. The thing that throws a wrench in that a little bit is Keontae George got injured last game. Any case, I like Anthony Simons in the Portland game as a run back, if you believe in that kind of thing. Like Luka a lot more on DraftKings. He's both cheaper and he gets those like double and triple double points. And then still like the Aaron Fox and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. If you're looking to spend up the point guard position, which might be a little bit different with so many of the cheap guys having like point guard eligibility. Shooting guard is about the same thing, except you add Talen Horton-Tucker to the mix of Utah Jazz guys. And then Jamal Keane is shooting guard and small forward eligible on DraftKings. He's only 3,400. Like small forward isn't the best position tonight. So there is a thought that you could like just spend as little money as possible. Like when you have a position that's not that good, and Kane's only 3,400, and we'll probably get like a little bit more playing time tonight. Played 29 minutes yesterday. Had a pretty good game. Also, a small forward like Lou Dort, and then if you're going to Utah guys that are not Chris Dunn, Colin Sexton, Talen Horton-Tucker, you can go to Agbaji or Fontecchio. Then spend ups like Kawhi Leonard, I think. Power forward, like a lot of like Keegan Murray. He's always like, or at least lately, he's been pretty well priced on DraftKings. He's in that Sacramento Oklahoma City game, and then also like Jalen Williams, power forward eligible on DraftKings from that same game. Center position, just a ton of Kelly Olynyk, but you can do that kind of same thing where you're playing like Yurtseven instead of Olynyk. One thing like Walker Kessler is going to be like see very, very little ownership, and he's like an interesting pivot piece just because he's like appropriately priced. But it would be interesting if like he is the guy that you need from all the Utah pieces. Like I think it'll be pretty low owned because everybody's like Jimmy and all these other Utah Jazz. You can always spend up on Jokic. Love me some Domantas Sabonis on DraftKings as much as on FanDuel. And then Rudy Gobert and Chet Holmgren as tournament options.
Very nice, gentlemen. We still have 10 whole minutes. Getting a bunch of questions in from the YouTube chat. A good time to remind you, this show is free. I'm not sure if you noticed. We're not charging you for it. And all that we ask is that you pay with a little thumbs up because it's sponsored by FanDuel. They want eyeballs. We want to keep the show free for you. And in order to do that, we need the eyeballs. We need the interaction. So bottom line, hit a little thumbs up. It's not for us. It's for you. Trying to keep the show free. And let's dive into some of these QQs, starting with the RG Discord as usual. And I'll go to Smoke and Jay. And Squirrel, I'll start with you. FanDuel single entry GPP. Papa Luka is on a heater. I like that. He says, is that a risky fade, seeing as he's putting up 60-plus points every freaking game?
No, I don't think you need you need to play Luka. So like you can absolutely skip him. Like I said, he's more expensive on FanDuel and he doesn't get those like double and triple points. So I don't think he's a must play by any means. I think he's more of like a tournament play. I don't know that I'm going to be playing Luka tonight on FanDuel. But I'm not doing like my 150 set. So.
Gotcha. Okay, very good. NBA DFS is FanDuel Cash. Kyle, you want THJ and Brogdon, or I assume that's Caleb Martin and Dinwiddie?
I will take the first side there.
Okay. Are we playing freaking Dante Exum? The last time I was on a show, I said Dante Exum sucks, and there's no way I'm playing that dude. That was like a week and a half ago, and all he's done is kick ass every game since I said that. Has he been too jacked up now to play, hopefully?
I don't know, because like, Kyrie's still out. He just looks like a much better player this year. I don't know.
What is he doing? He's not supposed to do this. Like, I'm glad I haven't been playing DFS because he would have been crushing me every night.
Yeah, he's like scoring now. Like he's shooting and scoring, and that used to be something he didn't do. And he moved into the starting lineup, and he's like taking double-digit shots, scoring like 20 points a game. Yeah, I don't know. Like I think Dante Exum's still in the conversation tonight as a tournament guy.
Okay, great. Cranesters just asked, who else on Dallas do you pivot to? Any interest in Exum? It's like the Matrix with him. Yeah. All right, let's see what else we got here. DKGPP, scroll back to Hendricks or Braun?
I'd probably go Hendricks. Like he's kind of getting like he's going to be like kind of leverage off of the other Utah guys, but it really depends somewhat on the starting lineup. Like I'd like to see the starting lineup first before I really made a call there. Like I think Christian Brown's going to project better, but like Taylor Hendricks is a more interesting play.
Okay. Let's see here. Darren says FanDuel Cash. Kyle, this one's for you. Luka or wait on some late news? I feel like you said you like it in a Luka.
This is FanDuel.
Yeah, this is a FanDuel Cash question.
Yeah, FanDuel, I think I like building around SGA a little bit more. I think on DraftKings, I think Luka's the guy, but on FanDuel specifically, I think Squirrel outlined it really well. You know, he's a little bit more expensive, and the bonuses that he racks up, as well as even the 3-point bonus, but the double-double and triple-double bonus specifically, he doesn't have those on FanDuel, so a little bit harder for him to have those monster games. So I think I prefer the $1,200 savings there with SGA, and then you get the added luxury of the being able to wait for news.
Nice. Okay, very good. Squirrel, this question from C Self-Made, it says, for a FanDuel pivot, any interest in Hardy? I don't know who he's pivoting off of, but did you get to any Hardy?
I did not get to any Jaden Hardy. His minutes kind of been all over the place. I feel like his bigger games might have been when Tim Hardaway Jr. was sitting. So Yeah, I'd probably rather wait and see like who's coming in the later games than locking up a lineup spot with Jaden Hardy.
Okay, great. We'll go to Ron in the YouTube chat. Squirrel in a DK GPP is playing Powell and pivoting to Wiggins. Okay, if George is in.
Let's see. So I might actually pivot to Kuminga instead of Powell. And then like Fontecchio is there as well. I guess like the question is, when do we get the Paul George news? Because that game is half an hour later than the Utah game. I like the idea of keeping that spot open and then maybe seeing what the starting lineup is. What do projections update to? I think that's reasonable to play Norman Powell if like Paul George is out. My preferred pivot might be to Jonathan Kuminga though.
Okay, very nice. There's a FanDuel question. Kyle, I'll give it to you. I don't know if this is cash or GPP, but just take it for what it's worth. I think that would be, he says Simmons Kane, but it might be Simons Kane or Sharp Braun.
I'm gonna go with the Simons side there. I think I'm a big fan of Simons, and we have Kane for about 24 minutes, and he's really cheap, only 3,600. It's almost min price there, so I'll go with the first side.
Okay, I'm glad you mentioned Kane and the minutes because one of the next questions was to Squirrel. It was how many minutes do you think Kane gets? Kyle, you said we have him projected for 24. Is that right?
Yep.
Squirrel, over under. What does your squirrel brain think?
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable projection. We don't really know. He just had a big game last game. So like does that affect things? I don't. You'd have to ask the coach. So like we don't know. I think 24 is a totally reasonable estimate. It could be a few more. It could be a few less. Yeah, we don't know. Oh, just a thing on the names. Got to make sure you got your THJs like distinct from your THTs when you're typing like for questions because they're like both possible plays tonight. So yeah, THJ versus THT.
Thank you. The good note there. All right. Billy says, any interest, Squirrel, in Powell with George possibly out on DK and FanDuel single entry?
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. And I like the idea of keeping the roster spot open. I get the question becomes if we don't have Paul George news by 10 o'clock, do you keep Powell in there? And I would probably be more likely to switch to a Utah guy in that case if we don't know.
Okay, that's fair. All right, we'll go to Wesley's question here. And Kyle, I'm coming back to you. FanDuel cash, you want Kuminga or P. Williams?
I'm gonna go with Kuminga there.
Okay, we got some football talk coming in. We may get to that here after lock. Kyle, who are your best power forward value plays on DK? Someone for Utah. I'm guessing it's someone on Utah. I don't know.
Yeah, Fontecchio is power forward eligible, so he's probably the guy that pops first there. Keegan Murray, guy that Squirrel mentioned earlier, he's 5'9", so I don't know if that's quite a value play, but I would say those two stick out. And then a couple other names, Kuminga's 5'4", so I would say those are the names that I would be mostly looking at there.
Okay, great. FanDuel cash 2v2. Kyle, you want Monk and Sabonis or Exum and Vooch?
You said this is cash?
Yeah, this is FanDuel cash, Monk, Sabonis, or Exum and Vooch.
Yeah, I would take the Sabonis side for cash.
Yeah, all right. FanDuel single entry. Squirrel, I'm coming to you from Jay Sams. Is Hendricks in play on FanDuel single entry? And are Utah guys cheap enough where I could play Hendricks with Sexton and or THT?
Yeah, I think so. I think the answer is yes to all those things. It's a little bit of a question just because we don't know like who's going to be starting and how the minutes are going to break down. I think Agbaji is probably going to start because I think he came in for Keontae George. I think Colin Sexton was already starting. Lauri Markkanen is out now though. But yeah, I think you can play Hendricks. I think he's an interesting pivot off of the rest of the Utah Gate guys, and all of these guys are so cheap. Like you can pretty much play any combination. I'd maybe try to avoid guys that like don't overlap minutes in the same lineup though.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's fair. We got a few questions coming in, names I haven't seen, so I assume these are tournament takes. So Squirrel, I'm going to kind of hit you with a few of these real fast. Interest in Dort on FanDuel, the Dortcher chamber.
Yeah, definitely. He's in that Utah Sacramento game. So I'm getting on both sites. He's small forward eligible, and he's in that Sacramento Oklahoma City game that I like.
Nice. Okay. Anthony says thoughts on B-Pod. That's Brendan Podlemski. Golden State tonight. That's not how it's pronounced, but I tried. Squirrel, any B-Pod?
I'm not getting him, but he just comes off the bench, and if he's on fire, they let him keep shooting. And so it leads to some big games. So there are worse things to do. He's a guy who's just not going to project that well generally. But if he's hitting his shots, they're going to let him in.
Okay. I love this question from Swole from someone. It says, hey, Watford is popping for me. Why? Why is Watford popping? Are we interested? Or are we like, it's popping, but we don't like it?
Yeah, I'm not sure on trending Watford.
Yeah, we have him for about 14 minutes, 4-1. So I definitely think that you can find some better options down there. I mean, he's a fine per minute guy, but I just don't know if he's going to have the minutes tonight. So probably no Watford for me.
Okay.
I'm guessing that's like a DraftKings thing because you need the value a little bit more probably on DraftKings. One injury question. I was just looking at FanDuel actually. Like Trey Lyles is also questionable. So like Trey Lyles is about the same price and power forward eligible on FanDuel, and if Lyles is in, then I maybe like Lyles a little bit more. Watford's cheaper on DraftKings. I'm just not getting there.
Yeah. Kelly in the chat says Watford's popping all week. He's been doing okay per minute, like Kyle mentioned, but you just got to say no. Like we don't know if the minutes are there, and that's dicey. 14 minutes ain't a whole lot. Sugar Ray says DK tournament. Squirrel, you want Harden, KP, or Sharp and Simons? We got less than a minute until lock. Make sure you get those lineups in.
I'd go Sharp and Simons because they're both they both are in later games and the same game. So if Brogdon's out, they both probably jump up a little bit in projection. So I'd go with the Sharp and Simons, although I think that Porzingis thing might have just locked.
Very nice. Okay. Well, as you mentioned, we did just lock. We have hit the lock. We are going to bounce on out of here because I've got some football and maybe some hoops to watch here. So we're going to bounce. Squirrel, you going to watch some hoops or some b-ball? I'm sorry, some football or some b-ball?
Probably more football. As many injuries as there are in that game, it's like less ugly than the NBA season.
That's brutal. That's brutal. Kyle, you going to watch you going to watch the sports tonight?
Yeah, I'll be on the next show, NFL show. So tune into that. We'll be that's about 10 minutes. So yeah, I'll be hopefully doing some double duty with both football and basketball.
That is a good plug right there. And that is the plan for tonight. So for Kyle, for Squirrel, for our wonderful production crew, always working hard behind the scenes. Guys, we appreciate you. We love you. And we will catch you tomorrow. You have been crunched.